All right, welcome everyone. This is the Change by Choice podcast, and I'm so incredibly excited to introduce and welcome Coach Tim Adams on with me and to be able to share this experience with you all. So Tim, thank you so much for jumping on. I know you're incredibly busy, even in a different time zone. So
yes.
just matching up schedules and just, for anyone out there who this might be your first time experiencing one of my podcast interviews, the hashtag is Every Story Matters. And that really is the basis of why I love to interview different people who have achieved a fair bit amount of success in their own ways. And there's always two intentions that I love to share with people. The first one is what it looks like to achieve your goals and to persevere and to push through the obstacles and the grit that we need to, because as we all know, it doesn't always feel good. And so many times people quit right before they would actually achieve that goal that they have, all because of the hardship with the mindset of the ongoing failing and the ongoing, it just doesn't feel good sometimes, right? On the other side, what I love to share with people is that, yes, it requires hard work. When you are on a mission in your life and you have goals and you're moving forward, it is not something that you just snap your fingers and all of a sudden things are meant to just fall into place. And sometimes I'm working with people and they get really discouraged when they figure out how much hard work it actually takes to achieve the goals that they have in their life. And so this too, in sharing Coach Tim Adams' story, a little bit of the journey, to really see that it's like, it's a tough game, especially I'm sure you're going to be able to notice as well when you're doing a pivot in life and a pivot, in profession, or you're starting to work and gear things in a different direction. Again, it requires us to be a beginner all over again and learn tools and strategies that are just, we're always being challenged, aren't we? Awesome. So Tim, obviously you sent me a great deal of information, so thank you so much. Just such incredible accomplishments. I loved that, what you highlighted as your greatest accomplishment really is your two boys, your family, obviously probably the biggest why and biggest mission in your life.
Yeah, and they're right here, actually, just begging on camera. So I'll let them come say hi real quick, get it out of their system. So I told them I was going to be on tonight, and they got all excited. They obviously love to be in front of the camera, don't they? All right, guys, say hi. You need to go to bed, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. So this is Ryder. He's my 7-year-old. And this is Zane. He's my 9-year-old. Awesome. And this is our happy family. That's the microphone. All right. So you guys need to go to bed, right?
Hi.
Okay. That's good. Go to bed.
So awesome. Kind of makes me wish I had my two kids. They could just take over and do the whole podcast on their own.
They could easily monopolize the podcast. Very easily. Okay. Go to bed. All right.
I love that.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, these are the real moments, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us because, I don't always have my kids with me. They're 1 week on, 1 week off, but they're doing the same thing, like, Mom.
Yeah. And I try to include them as much as I can. I was for one time, separating them from what I do. And I didn't think it was quite fair for people to get to know me. They have to know my kids. Right. And so we do lives sometimes together, and it's fun. It's really fun for me. And it's great to see them develop and be able to articulate, because there was a time, and I got a story for that, where when I first started getting in front of the camera, it was horrific. But these guys seem to be doing pretty good about it, right? So I'll show everything. My rabbit ears. So yeah. they are my world, right? And they're the most important things to me. Things are the most important part of my life for sure. And I really do what I do for them, and to give them an opportunity to see kind of my behavior and my actions and what I do, I hope gets instilled in them as well. So,
Oh, that's so
there
beautiful.
you go.
That's awesome. Great way to start. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, in the other
So,
part of your life, obviously you're a sports performance coach, but you
yeah.
have incredible accomplishments. What would be
Okay.
what would be some of the highlights for you in terms of what you've accomplished, and maybe tell us a little bit about where you're pivoting as well.
Yeah. Look, I've been for the last, well, I've been in performance or high performance for almost 30 years now, and for 25 years of that time, it was all about sports. It was working with the top 1%, if you would. I mean, my clients are iconic. They are household names. You listen to them on the radio. You watch them on the big screen. In terms of movies, you watch them on Sundays. You watch them in the Super Bowl and the Stanley Cup and in the Olympics. My guys win gold medals. They've won world championships. They have been NFL MVPs. They've been Heisman Trophy winners. They've been inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. So I have been working really at the very, very top, right? That's what I'm accustomed to. And you would think that when you're at the top, it's really easy to create results, right? The reality is they've accumulated so much training, so much effort over the last 10, 20 years that to make adjustments, to make gains, actually requires a lot of foresight, a lot of planning, a lot of work to be able to move the needle, if you would, to be able to make gains. Whereas when you take believe it or not, a high school kid and you make them do something, they're going to improve. It doesn't really matter what you do; they're going to get better. And so the margin of improvement becomes a lot bigger when you're just starting out, because you have only up to go, basically, right? Whereas when you're at the very top, one wrong move could end a career. And that's why it's interesting that most people in that level are very reactive. They're very protective. They're very they try to manage the risk by not putting their athletes into certain situations to potentially harm them. Whereas I take a little different approach, and I want to stress the system. I want to create resilience. I want to be able to make sure that the body can handle more load. And if I can get the body to handle a little more load, you're going to decrease your chances of injury. And I created quite a name for myself in pro sports by helping athletes decrease their chances for injury, increasing their longevity, and making a lot of money for them doing it, right? The longer they play, the more money they're going to make. In fact, they're going to make more money if they can play over 10 years in any of the pro sports than if they just get that initial contract. So it's been just an amazing ride for me. I've been very blessed with amazing clients. And you know, do I have one thing that stands out to me? I don't, because I've had so many great opportunities to be able to coach at the college level, to coach at the pro level, to coach Olympians, to coach, you know, world champions, and learn from all of them. And it's really interesting. Like I'm helping them improve, and yet they're helping me, because I'm, you know, everybody's different and everybody responds differently. And you know, some of these individuals, when I first started out, I had one client who knew anatomy better than me. And I was forced to have to learn my anatomy just to keep up with him. And it was, it's really how I got to be great with the body, and how I got to be so good, because I would have my hands on him every single day, resetting his body. and and I had to learn like rapidly. I'm not talking a year. I'm talking months to where
Yeah.
I had to get up to speed, and it was like a fire hose effect. And it, the funny thing about that is that's how it's been almost every time I've learned a new skill. And I have a lot of skills in my toolbox that I use. So that's probably one of the greatest accomplishments I have is my depth and breadth of knowledge that I have at access to.
It's so funny because so many people listening in right now might be like, you may not relate completely to the story, you know what I mean, in terms of being able to experience, but what you did say, which is you put yourself in challenging positions that has forced you to have to level yourself up really quickly. And I think of how many times people hold back because they're no longer maybe the smartest person in the room, or their ego just kind of tips, and it's like, I see it with teams and kids heading into, sports teams where maybe they're playing with the best players, but they're more comfortable going down to where maybe they're the best player on the team, and like, yeah, just interesting.
What's interesting. So I want to talk on that because the mindset of professional athletes is, you would think every single one of them is like the best and so mentally strong and so great at what they do. And the reality is, they're just like you and I, right? They have a life, they have a family, and they have struggles just like you and I. And yet some of them, the ones that we know their names, the ones that are iconic, are the ones that have this mental toughness, this mental, what I call this acumen, that they can do things mentally. And it's not the same for every single one of them. One might be great at compartmentalization. Another one might be great at visualization. Another might be great at thought stop, and another might be great at imposing his will on someone else on the battlefield, if you would.
Yeah,
it's all different, right? And yet the guys that are great, they have learned consciously or subconsciously how to develop a skill. And the great thing about it, and the thing I really see, is that the guys that stay in the league for an extended period of time have that. The guys that fall off, because physically they're all the same, right? In essence, I mean, they're all fast, they're all big, they all, have worked their way to that level. The guys that can stay there, though, have the ability to handle stress mentally much different than everybody else, right? And I think it's something that people don't talk about, and it's something that I spend a significant amount of time with my clients. That's really focusing on, and focusing on the ability to handle load. And load could be physiological or it could be psychological. And I like to put people in physiological stress so that they psychologically expand their capacity to handle stress. And it's an interesting phenomena, but I really work from the ground up and inside out versus top down. And I get to the head through really the physiology. And it's I believe that when you do it that way, that you strengthen the mental muscle. You strengthen this mental toughness way better than you could if you just read a book and tried to do it mentally. If you spend all your time in your head and not in action, there's this point of where you almost believe that you've already done it because you've been thinking about it so much. Whereas you get into action, you do it, and you own it. I don't know if that makes sense.
100% makes sense, and just I couldn't agree more in terms of the strengthening the mindset, in terms of what sets people apart, in terms of those who end up quitting or falling back, and those who push forward, right? I see it with my own clients too, and not from the physicality unless I'm teaching spin, but it's interesting. I love, and that's what I found so unique about our conversation, was that of how different of a place you talk from when you talk about performance, right? And developing that strong mindset. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So what started you in the journey, right? Like where did you start from that this is where you ended up?
So I was, when I was 9 years old, my parents moved us. I was born in Lafayette, Indiana, and we grew up in a town called Linden. And it's a small town just south of Lafayette that if you blinked, you would actually miss it if you were driving through it. It's so tiny.
Yeah.
And my dad was a teacher at the time, and we definitely grew up in modest means, right? And this was a farm town literally out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And so we moved to the Vail Valley in Colorado, and you can imagine the culture shock, not only culture shock, but just the environmental shock, because we go from everything we had was flat and corn everywhere, right, to mountains that were majestic and beautiful, and snow. Well, we had snow in Indiana, but in fact, funny enough, the year we moved, I think we had 45 days of snow days. It was the blizzard of 78, and in Indiana, we had like 15-foot snow drifts. I moved to Colorado. I'm never going to school because we're going to have so many snow days. And I think in the entire time I was going to school in Colorado, I think I missed school once because of a snow day.
Yeah, right.
And that was like in May. So we moved to Colorado, and it was a new school, and I was kind of the outsider, and it was tough. And we had the presidential fitness test, and I was trying to do a pull-up. And I was just hanging there, and my coach was in my ear saying, "Tim, get your chin over the bar." And I'm just like, I'm trying, but I wasn't moving. Like my body didn't even move. I didn't budge at all. And in no way did that bother me. Like I was just like, I guess I can't do a pull-up. So I let go of the bar. My feet hit the ground, and there was some laughter, and kids came up and said, "Tim, why can't you do a pull-up? Lisa can do a pull-up, but you can't do a pull-up." And I was like embarrassed. I was ashamed, and they were making fun of me and pointing their fingers at me. And I was already an outcast. Like I wasn't part of the crowd yet. I didn't fit in yet, and I just felt more separated from them. And it just lit this fire in me. Like it just instantaneously, I felt this rage. And fast forward, I went home. I bit my lip. I tried not to cry, and I get home, and as soon as I crossed the threshold of my parents' trailer, we lived in a trailer in Avon, and I just burst into tears, and my parents are like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Dad, I need a weight set." And look, we didn't have a lot of money, and my dad was already working 2 jobs, and the next day he comes home with a weight set. And this is a weight set that had the plastic bumpers that you fill with concrete or sand. The barbell's an inch thick, and the bench is like a 6-inch raggedy bench that just wobbled every time you used it. And we put it out back behind a shed, and I was on it every day, just doing something. Like, knowing what I know now, boy, was I making, I probably have some problems because of what I was doing then. But I got stronger, and I wasn't huge or anything like that, but I definitely got stronger. And in 7th grade, my science teacher was my football coach, or I was trying out for football, and I had always wanted to be a receiver. I wanted to play in the NFL as a receiver, and my dad used to throw me balls, and I'd dive and catch. And my favorite players were Lynn Swann and Ahmad Rashad from the Minnesota Vikings with Fran Tarkenton, and they'd always dive for these catches, and they were so acrobatic, and that's what I used to think. And so my science teacher, I went up to him and said, "Yeah, I want to try out for receiver." And he goes, "Oh no." I go, "I see you sitting in the back of the room with that angry scowl on your face." He goes, "You need to hit somebody." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You could be a linebacker." I go, "What's a linebacker?" He goes, "He's the guy that just follows the ball and hits the people." I'm like, "Okay." So my first time we had pads on, first time we hit, one of the kids that was making fun of me ran across the middle, caught a ball, and I hit him. I hit him so hard, I knocked the wind out of him, and I'm standing over him, and he's kind of got tears in his eyes, and I'm kind of like, "Oh, this is good." and so I realized I was really good at using my hips.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't realize that at the moment, but I enjoyed the physical part of releasing that anger I had because I felt ostracized, right? And the funny thing is after that moment, I fit in, right? I was completely engulfed by the group, and but never really felt part of the group. I always felt like I was a little off. Fast forward to high school, we had just finished our senior year, and I was an all-state football player and got recruited to play at the Air Force Academy, and I was running track, and I had shin splints, and I couldn't run. So the coach said, pick an event to do that, it's a field event. And I'm like, all right, I'll do the discus. There's no stomping in that. It's just spinning. But we didn't have a field events coach. And so at the next track meet, I look over and I was like, the best field events coach in the state was our rival high school. And so I go up to our rival high school coach and I go, hey, Coach Roeter, do you think you could coach me how to throw the discus? And he looks at me and goes, Tim, I coach for the rival high school. I go, I know, but I need to learn how to throw because I can't run. I got shin splints. And he looks at me and goes, well, if your coach says okay, I'll do it. You just have to come down after practice. And I'm like, okay. So I go up to our coach. Our coach was a football coach, and he looked like Popeye, big forearms, big neck, and he'd spit when he'd get angry. And I'd be like, hey, Coach Moran, I asked Coach Roeter to teach me how to throw the discus after practice. Are you okay with that? And he goes, that's a great idea. And I'm like, great. So I'd go down, and for the first week I was with Coach Roeter, I didn't even touch a discus. We were just doing spinning, technique. And then I take that and I come back and I practice it. And at first I was horrible. And then next thing you know, I start getting a little better. And next thing you know, in 3 weeks, the end of the season, I win districts and qualify for state. And I realized at that moment the importance of learning from the best. And so I kind of carried that lesson on for the rest of my life. So when I was at the Air Force Academy and I was doing Olympic lifting, I went down to the Olympic Training Center and learned from Dragomir, who was our national team coach. Once I graduated and I wanted to learn speed, I was like, who's the fastest man in the world? It was Ben Johnson at the time. And I was like, who coaches Ben Johnson? Well, a Canadian, Charlie Francis. And so I was like, who do I know that knows Charlie Francis? And I knew a guy who knew a guy. And within a week, I'm in front of Charlie Francis learning speed from one of the best in the world. And that's kind of how it went. When I learned soft tissue work, I didn't want to just learn from any massage therapist. I went to the guy who developed the technique. When I wanted to learn about, anything I want to learn, I'd go to the guy who developed it, the guy who was producing gold medals, the guy who was producing world records. I just went around the world and spent time with these people, sports scientists, sports psychologists, track coach, athletes, you name it. I'd spend time with them and I take what they learned, because these guys were the best in the world at what they did. And I'd see how they coached. I'd watch how they'd phrase things. I'd see the techniques that were important to them. And I'd ask them like, well, why aren't you doing this? And they'd be like, well, that's not the most important thing they need right now. And I'm like, well, why not? And I was just always questioning why. And I remember I paid for this internship by this one guy, and I just kept asking questions. He's like, God, you can't ask me any more questions. And I'm like, what? But the key, the whole premise is I learned from the best, right? And then I would take that information and then I would instantaneously apply it to my athletes. And that's really, I think, what made the biggest difference is I wasn't afraid to apply. I wasn't afraid to test. And to this day, I've got clients that have scars from the soft tissue work I did on them because I was so bad at it, right? When I first started, I was so bad. I made guys bleed. That's how bad I was. And now, I get guys out of injury and keep them out of injury, get people out of pain like that. And it's been a wild ride, right? And anyway, so that's kind of some of my story. And then the other piece of my story that you need to know about is I've had 5 knee surgeries. And I'm not going to bore you with the entire story of my knee surgery stories, but the reality is for the last 30 years, I have not had, nor do I have, an ACL. So in 1986, I tore my ACL skiing. I went home skiing from the Air Force Academy. And I was actually being wheeled into the Steadman Hawkins surgery operating room with a yes on my right knee and a no on my left knee. My right knee was shaved. And right when they hit the operating room doors, I remember the cart stopping and the nurse was running up saying, "Oh no, we can't touch him. He's government property." I'm like, "What? Wait, what? And I'm half kind of baked because I had already been anesthetized a bit. And so I ended up having to go down to the Air Force Academy because I was government property. I was a cadet and I didn't know better. I just, was like, fix me. But that's not how it works when you're in the military. You're their property. And so I had to go to the Air Force Academy to get my surgery done. And so anyway, that surgery failed about 6 months later when I was climbing a rope. I was 20 feet in the air, about ready to hit the bell. And I had my leg wrapped around the rope. And as I went to push off, my tibia dislocated and ended up behind my knee. And I was kind of freaked out a little bit. It hurt pretty good, but I was sliding down the rope and I could smell the burn in my hands. I hit the ground and my knee pops back in, thankfully. But then I kind of disappeared from basic training and tried to practice on it one more year in football and play one more year, but it didn't work very well. I was kind of in and out. I'd practice a day, and the other day my knee would be dislocated. I'd have my friends pull tug on my leg and pop my leg back in. It was so bad. I'd walk around a corner and my knee would go bloop, bloop. And so the entire cadet, and my boys are still up. My entire cadet, I did. You guys need to be in bed, right? Yeah, please go to bed. All right. And we'll talk about this later. All right. Go to bed. Okay, well, apparently we're going to have some visitors for a little bit, and then hopefully we'll get them to bed. So anyway, after that, I'm doing talking, right? So I need you guys to be quiet. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So after that, I waited to get surgery because in the Air Force in the Air Force Academy, if you have surgery on one joint twice, you get medically disqualified. So I waited till I graduated, and when I graduated, I got surgery again. This time they used my patella tendon, and literally three months after that, 3 months after that, after the surgery, I got hit by a car on a bike and obliterated that graft, and then I decided to just wait and that's when I really started learning about the body and when I really started learning about different therapies and ways to do things. And I started getting better. And then when I was with the Raiders, I kind of got coerced by a couple of the players to run with them. And I was really good. I was actually really, when I learned how to sprint, I got really good at sprinting. And when I got hired by the Raiders, I was one of the fastest guys on the team. In fact, I could beat most of the players in a 20 until I taught them how to sprint. And then by then they blew me away because they were so good. And but at the beginning, I felt pretty good about myself. Pretty bad about our options. Anyway, about 4 games left in the season, we were in Pittsburgh and I was running with the players that didn't play, and we were running hundreds, and I was about 80 yards into it and got a bucket handle tear in my meniscus, and it was over. So I decided to get one more surgery, and this time the doctor said, "Well, since we're in, why don't we just throw in a cadaver graft into your knee so you have an ACL?" And I'm like, "Great idea." About 3 weeks after that surgery, I start getting this little bump on my shin because that was a pretty traumatic surgery for me. They broke a screwdriver on my tibia, or on this. They were trying to remove a screw from a previous surgery, and they broke a screwdriver on it, so they had to chisel out the screw, and they left a pretty big defect in my tibia, and they packed it with the cadaver bone, and that got infected, and it ate away my graft, and So now I was 0 for 3 on ACLs. So I had one more surgery to clean it up. And since that surgery, I've been bone on bone for 12 years. Wow. And so I've got 20% of my meniscus. I'm bone on bone, and I don't have an ACL. And if I had some space, I'd show you. I can move pretty well. And if you've seen me on stage, you can.
On stage, that's how I saw you.
Yeah, and the only reason I can move like that is because I've learned how to take care of myself. Yeah. I've learned how to do self-care. I've learned this process that I call the 11-minute routine that I do on a daily basis that helps me manage not only my pain, but manage my range of motion. Because I have really good range of motion for someone who's got a degenerative joint. And I really believe in use it or lose it, right? If you're not using your joints, if you're not using your body, if you're not moving on a daily basis, then shame on you. And if you think that you're in too much pain, then you need to learn how to take care of yourself to start to move your body a little bit more tomorrow than you did today, and a little bit more today than you did yesterday, right? So every day you should be trying to move a little more, get a little more range of motion in your joint, and at the end of a month, at the end of a year, you're going to have more range of motion. I guarantee it. So I'm really passionate about that now, right? And that's kind of where I'm at today, and that to come full circle to the pivot, and that is, I had a client who is a professional speaker, Bo Eason, and he asked me to come speak to his group. And he told me, hey, these guys want to know about performance, and they're all about performance because these guys are the best in the world at what they do. And so I go there, and I'm watching the room, and I'm watching them move, and I'm blown away by how disconnected they are. Basically, I call it, their heads are being transported by their body, but it's not integrated with their body. It's like their body's a taxi, just taking their head from point A to point B, and they have no idea how they're getting there. They're just like a talking head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really think I can help these people. And so I started, throwing out ways that I thought I could help, and nothing really stuck at first, and it just became like a process of testing of what
Okay.
of what would work.
No,
okay. All right, enough. I think it's time for you guys to go to bed.
No.
All right.
Why can we have the lollipops?
Because it's time for bed. What time is it? It's almost 9 o'clock. Your bedtime's at 7:30. And
it's only 8:51.
Yeah, it's 7:30. All right, go to bed.
No.
All right.
Like, when are we gonna have the lollipops?
Eyes. Now, eyes.
What?
Bedtime.
Okay.
Go.
Can we go?
Look at my eyes. Eyes. Bedtime.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah, we're still on this thing,
love
right?
you.
I want to have the lollipop.
In bed. No. Enough. Eyes on me. Eyes on me. Go to bed. All right. Love you guys. No. All right. Sorry, guys.
All the parents out there. We're all
no idea.
Get it.
No idea. I don't even know where I'm at.
There's a high performance tip for parents out there.
Yeah. So, but it's not working very well. I can hear him still talking, so I'm sure you will too. So, I have no idea where I'm at in the story. So, anyway, that's kind of what got me here, pretty much is, my knee, taking care of your body, and then, learning from the best. And as a result, I've had just, the other aspect I think that kind of differentiates me from a lot of people is I have this unique ability to integrate information and see things, because I kind of, not that I'm going to own this, but I'm a slow learner, I say. And the reason is because I'm processing, and it's like this computer chugging away of making a connection. So like if I get a new piece of information, I'm seeing how that information is connected to all these different aspects of like a spider's web, right? It's just in my mind, I'm seeing the connections. And so it's a slower process for me to get it. But then once I've got it in a way that has this depth and breadth to it, this nuance, these kind of differentiators, if you would, that's a little more unique than I would say most people that I know, right? And then I see things that other people don't see, and I think because I put my hands on bodies to reset them, that it creates instantaneous rapport with people. There's a trust that happens when you put your hands on someone. It's a special bond that occurs. And I know you're a hugger. I'm a hugger, and that's part of the reason I'm a hugger. It's like I love this connection, right? And when you have the ability to, part of the reason we shake hands is to create a connection. Yeah. Part of a hug is to create a more intimate connection, right? And I think there's a lot that can be learned from somebody with a hug, right? So anyway, touch is a really important part of what I do as well. So,
yeah. Well, and I mean, we were kind of joking. I'm not joking, but like when I first met you at Mel's event, it was like we both noticed we're like amazing huggers, right? Like I love to hug, and I often joke with people, and I've said it on live videos before, where it's like, it's about connection. Like you're allowing somebody, like you're giving yourself to somebody in a way. You're and it's building trust, and I feel like people are starving from touch, just in life. And so
sure.
What you said to me was, I think I might be even getting it wrong. You're like, oh, you're so kinetic. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but it sounds really good.
Kinesthetic. Yeah, you are kinesthetic, and you are. And
I don't know what that means, but that's okay.
You're in your body, and it goes back to this concept of when. So yeah, that's where I got interrupted. Was this concept that I'm, Bo asked me to come speak to these entrepreneurs, executives, businessmen that are supposed to be the best in the world, and yet they're so disconnected. Their mind, body, and what I call this primal aspect are disconnected, and so people speak to people from their head, and there's this incongruence. And so I'm really big on getting people down into their body, and so what I was complimenting you on your ability to be in your body, because you're in your body, and it's a nice, it's a really it's unique because so many people are disconnected right now. I mean, you watch someone, you walk down the street, and you'll see how disconnected we really are. People walk like Frankenstein. People shuffle. People don't know how to move their body, and they're like rigid, right? And so when you connect with someone who is connected with their body, it's a great experience. It's nice. Right?
It's it's so funny because I mean we go at it from kind of two different ways, but I have the same philosophy, with the work that I do too, just in terms of having people connect more and build more trust with themselves. Like we want other people and experiences to fill in voids that we have not yet filled with our own self, and creating connection with our own self, you know what I mean? And so I think that ability to, and that's why it is a very nice compliment to know that, I'm connected with myself, but I've done a whole lot of work in, maintaining and creating, and through my habits and my disciplines. So it's like, it's
yeah. And look, I loved what you just said. Trust yourself, right? Because, like I said, when I put my hands on somebody else, there's immediate trust that occurs between one person and another. But the bigger play here right now for all of us, in order to be able to communicate more effectively, to be able to engage more effectively, to be able to influence more powerfully and potently, and to be able to connect on a way that we've never been able to connect before, is that we need to trust ourselves. And when we're disconnected, we don't trust. Oh yeah, here we go. This is good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What happened?
With the water.
Nice.
I didn't do anything.
Yeah. Nice. Take a breath. Nice. Take a breath. Take a breath. Eyes on me. Eyes on me. Eyes on me. You go to bed. Go to bed. Then stop playing. I asked you to go to bed, right? If you played around with the water bottle, is that going to bed?
So just giving him a little break there. I just put him on mute. So basically, what I want you guys to really take from this right now is, when you have listened to his journey, in terms of how he started off his story and just sharing like all these amazing successes, right? But it's like, listen to what he went through and the determination. Like, it's not like you're born, like he couldn't do a pull-up. Do you know what I mean? I can't do but it's his ability to have the drive and perseverance to being like, I'm not only going to learn this, I'm going to perfect this. The pride that he took in just wanting to just be the best at something, right? And going to the best. Tim and I share some of the same mentors, but it really is like, if you're learning to learn something, learn from the best. You know what I mean? Like, whatever that means in your realm, but like, look at what your goal is and what's holding you back. If it's that you just don't want to do the work, then you kind of got to get real there, because you're not going to be able to achieve the goals that you have without the drive and the desire and that ability to just keep persevering, right? Tim, I'll unmute you now. I muted you.
Thank you.
But, as I was just, mentioning, just in terms of like the grit that you went through, all the learning, the like wanting to be the best, but not in a sense of the ego of it, but like so that you could be the best at your job, so that you can help people and serve people in the very best way, and the pride that you have in terms of like, I'm not just going to learn it, I'm going to learn it, I'm going to learn it from the best, I'm going to go and do everything that I can to be able to serve at a level, and then just seeing how, that really has like come full circle for you,
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, so amazing. Because there's so many people that I talk to that it's almost like it's not possible. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, no one's born like successful. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody's born with this. Well, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, some people are maybe have higher IQs than others, but in terms of what it takes to actually, maintain being a high performer in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, the great thing, like the thing I love is that for 25 years, I've been coaching people on how to be the best, right? I mean, just how to be the best in the world at what they do. And it takes, like you said at the very beginning, it takes work, right? And I believe that it takes work, and it takes feedback to be able to make the adjustments at a more rapid pace, right? I want to accelerate the ability to go from point A to point B. I want to, but I don't hack my way there. Mm-hmm. I do it through foundational fundamentals, and sure, I might use things that might seem like I hack, but it's truly in the milieu, the environment of hard work, right? And the great thing is that science is now proving us right, proving this concept right. And there's a scientist called Anders Ericsson out of the University of Florida who has done the study on 10,000 hours. He's done the study on peak performance and peak performers, and it is about work, right? And it's about having this really this practice that you don't just go through the motions, that you don't just show up, but that you have this intent as you do what you do, that you have to really focus on what you're doing. And that's where I think, you can't just show up and be the best. You have to work to be the best, but you can't just do work and think you're going to be the best. That work has to be, you have to have the eyes on you. You have to have the coaching. And I think that's what I got with my coaching, because, some of the things I didn't tell you is how fast I got success. I mean, part of the story I didn't tell you about speed is in May of 98, I met Charlie Francis. In March of 99, I'm doing the off-season speed training for the Denver Broncos. It wasn't even a year that goes by, but now I'm doing speed training for a professional team, right? So there's no coincidence in that, right? I mean, it's are you learning from the best, and are you getting the feedback necessary to improve, right? That's why the fastest man in the world is always getting eyes on him, telling him that, yep, you got to work on this, you got to work on that, and he's constantly improving his technique, right? So it, it to me it's simple, it's not easy, right?
100%. And it's feedback is such a beautiful thing. And again, it goes back to that element of trust. If you don't trust, you're obviously not going to get feedback well. And that obviously is the trust between you and the person who's either giving you feedback. Could be an employer, could be a coach, it could be whatever, type of person. But God's sakes, when I'm working with people and it's like, it's the biggest gift you could give yourself is drop the layers that are holding you back from hearing what you need to know, because somebody has seen something that can help you bring yourself to the next level of success in whatever it is that you're doing. And so many people keep themselves small. They don't want to hear it. It hurts them. Like all those layers that just need to be shed, but it's just, it's obviously been the recipe that's worked for you, and so many other people too. But it's crazy what we are capable of doing. Like, I don't even think anybody really knows what they're capable of doing,
Well, I'm really glad you bring that up, Charlotte, because I believe that's so philosophically fundamental for me. I always talk about bridging this gap of performance, right? And we're here. We think we can go here, but the reality is we can be so much higher, and we can do so much more than we ever thought we could be. Because, I mean, if you think about any of the barriers in terms of sport that have ever been set, the 4-minute mile, the 20-foot pole vault, the 28-foot long jump, the 2-hour marathon, it's going to be broken. And all of that, it's just a matter of time, right? The 7-foot high jump, now 8-foot high jump, right? There's all these different things that people said, oh, if you run under 4-minute mile, your heart's going to explode. You're going to die. And the moment Roger Bannister broke that record, like 53 other people did it within the year. I mean, it's remarkable. So,
barriers.
Yeah. And they're all just imposed by ourselves, right? These self-limiting beliefs that we clip ourselves, right? And it's like, look, some of the stuff I do with my clients is I'm holding space for their greatness until they see it for themselves, right?
Oh my God, I love that you said that, because I often will talk about we need to hold space for people, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't yet see it. They're not quite there yet. And I really believe that when we start to do that, we're not just being selfish. It's no longer just about us. When you can hold space for somebody else and somebody else's greatness, you're making it be about like us as one. You know what I mean? Like, we need more of that now, and what I actually love about you sharing your story and allowing us to even see the relationship with your sons is I've been huge on just men showing up differently in life, and like, this is real, it's raw, and it's like, and it's, I see the shift happening with men and women, and I just think it's a beautiful thing. Women are finding their voice. They're becoming a lot stronger, a lot more confident. And men are starting to learn how to be more vulnerable, able to share from a different place. And I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
And well, I don't know if I want to bring this up, but like this is an issue that I've been speaking to with a lot of men. And that is, as women are owning their power, there's this shift in the household of and take it for what it's worth, of a man being the alpha of the house to the woman being the alpha of the house, and the man not creating a safe space for the woman to let her know that he's got it, right? And I've been to blame for that in past relationships and in my past relationships, and I know it's something that if a man kind of stood up, and it's not just about being vulnerable. You need to be vulnerable as a man, I believe. I mean, that's part of being, I think, integrated, right? It's also about making sure you take care of the woman in a way that she feels safe enough so that she can can be her authentic self and have the power to go off and do great things for others, right? And it's not about her, you know, being cold and being hard and stepping up to this power position and acting like she's a man, because I think that's a incongruence in not only a female and a male. It's an incongruence in the household. It's an incongruence in relationships, right? And so I believe that when a man can create a safe space for a woman, the woman can be more of a woman. She can be female, and she can also be that powerful, you know, warrior that she is, right?
That's exactly it, you know. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I just think it's a hugely necessary conversation that, you know, obviously we're seeing kind of ping pong in different ways, you know, out there, but but really great in terms of.
It's so interesting. I mean, I see it a lot I've got several female clients, and I have several, you know, male clients as well. And I hear it from both sides, right? And how the woman can't be, you know, doesn't feel safe enough to be a woman, right? And the man doesn't feel strong enough to be a man. Yeah. And it's just, and the funny thing is, if you just instantaneously change the way you showed up, it would instantaneously change the situation. It would diffuse the situation almost immediately. And it's so interesting how when we get stuck in that forest of in that rut, it's hard to see. You know, you only see the trees, you can't see the forest.
Mm-hmm. So true. So true. So how can people find you, reach you?
Well, so my website's coachtimadams.com. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/Coach Tim Adams. I do a daily live. I don't do it at the same time any day because I'm traveling and whatever. So whether I'm on the East Coast or West Coast, but I do it every day. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing that. I'm looking at other alternatives. But those are probably the two best ways to kind of get a hold of me. I'm on LinkedIn, Coach Tim Adams. I'm on, I think it's actually Coach Adams on LinkedIn, but I do have some other social media, but I haven't quite figured it out yet.
I'll be working through that this year.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'll be on YouTube shortly, but I'm not there yet. Yeah. But if you're interested, like learning more, I'd say go to my website. There's several ways to reach out to me. You can certainly reach out to me on Facebook. That's, you know, I'm on that daily for sure.
Cool. So in terms of just kind of like wrapping it up, I always like to ask, you know, to that younger Tim that couldn't do enough, what would you say to him now?
To the 9-year-old.
9-year-old.
Oof, that's you know, it's so funny. I've been doing a lot of internal work, right? And I'm still doing a lot of internal work. And the one thing I probably would say is that anger is not the solution. However, you know, look, I am where I am today because of the experiences that I've had, and I really wouldn't change it. I mean, I really would I like not to have torn my ACL 3 times, or, you know, torn my ACL at all? Yeah, because look, I can't do what I used to be able to do, and would I like not to have that anger? Absolutely, but with that, it has given me a lot of great things. So, you know, I think, not to get truly philosophical, but I certainly would say trust the process. Don't be in a rush. That just set a plan that is bigger than a year. Set a plan. Like, I like dreams. I like to talk about dreams, because dreams to me there's more longevity in a dream. You know, if I just talk about a goal, you know, to me, a goal helps accomplish a dream. If you just set goals, to me, they're finite. I want something that I have to work towards, right? I want to enjoy the process. And the other thing I would share with my younger self is, like I've spent the last 30 years developing a skill. Like I'm exceptional at some of these skills, and some of the skills I do, I'm probably world class. I would say broaden my skill set to handle storytelling, to handle public communication, to handle business, right? I never did that until the last 5 years. Um, and you know, had I done that earlier, I would have been much more comfortable in front of the camera, much more comfortable having this conversation 20 years ago. I mean, I had people telling me 20 years ago, where's your DVD? Where's this? Where's that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And not being comfortable enough in myself to put myself out there. And that, you know, that's a story I didn't really tell, but in 2008, 7, I wrote a book, and 8, I published it, and I tried to, I created an online platform for it, and I did a video, and I did it, put this video together, and I got ridiculed. And I was like, oh my God, I felt horrible. Like I wasn't ready. I hadn't done enough work on myself to be ready for that ridicule. And when the Kings told me it was a conflict of interest, I was okay with shutting it down, right? And yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, conflict, yes. So now I'm at a different point. But look, I mean, I'm almost 50 years old, and I have a different perspective on life now than I ever have, and I would have told my 9-year-old self that, look, you can't just be solely focused on one thing. And look, I wasn't solely focused on one thing. But really what I was focused on was performance, and all these other areas of speed and strength and soft tissue and psychology and nutrition and supplementation and all that was in my mind, all these different things, but I neglected the business side of things. I neglected the communication side of things. And don't get me wrong, like I can connect very well one-on-one, but I never spoke to groups necessarily, even though I taught in a college setting. It wasn't the same. So now I think the importance of story is so valuable. I think the importance of having the ability to connect with more people on an intimate basis is really important. And look, I believe that, and the other thing I would tell my 9-year-old self is that, you're destined for greatness. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like I would tell every 9-year-old this, is you really have a purpose, and find that purpose. And I was fortunate that I found my purpose at about 24 years old, and I fell in love with coaching. I knew that's what I was, designed to do. And I had that opportunity to do that for a really long period of time. So I guess the final thing I would say is just trust yourself. Use your intuition more than your head, and that would be the other thing, because I used my head way too much when I was younger.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. You're lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's so cool to share stories and for us to get a little glimpse on, what really got you to where you're at right now. And so just so incredible. I'll be putting out more information just in terms of how you can reach Coach Tim Adams. But thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.